Well, the heartrending story and the redemption plan of the troubled Niger-Delta region comes to mind. The efforts of the Pan-Niger-Delta Forum at fostering peace and development while drawing federal government's attention to the plight of the host communities in a region riddled by or with oil spillage, pollution, threats of violent groups, and daily livelihood. I'm delighted to have the national chairman, Pan-Niger-Delta Development Forum, PANDEF, Ambassador God Knows, Igali. He joins us now on Arise Prime Time. Glad to have you join us, God Knows.
Thank you very much.
And indeed, God knows everything.
Yes, he does.
He does. Let's start it this way. From an era of conflicts, a culture of violence, as communities face off with government forces of oil and gas, to a new era now of cooperation. How do you situate what is presently happening in the Niger Delta?
Well, the Niger Delta, I slightly disagree with you, as does not have a long history of conflicts.
No, I'm saying they have.
We've had,
Yeah.
but not a long history
Okay.
of conflicts. We are a collection of very peaceful people
Okay.
that have lived among ourselves in peace. There are very few incidences of territoriality or people conquering other people and so on. But in the recent history, economic circumstances have turned the region to have conflicts. If you know the recent, I say recent history because at the advent of colonial rule, the palm oil trade had to pass through our territories to Europe, and the Europeans insisted on going inside. Our people said, you can't do that. You have to do the right thing, which is internationally accepted, by paying royalties to us. And that was the fate of King Jaja of Opobo, who was kidnapped. He was actually kidnapped because the British wrote that we are going to let you go. Come to the ship, let's negotiate, and they went away with it. Overanwa of Benin was captured and taken away to Calabar. Nana of Ishekri was taken away on exile. King Koko of Nembe in 1895 was taken away, Ibanuchuku of Okreka, and so on and so forth. So that was the first set of conflicts, palm oil. Then the second set of conflicts is another form of oil, crude oil, with the discovery of crude oil in 1956 and the first export of crude oil from Oloibiri in 1958. Then we started to have the incidences of oil-induced conflicts. But the greater part of the conflict was the fact that we never knew that this crude oil that brings so much money and wealth to the country was going to become a major source of concern to us. It became a major source of pollution. Our territory became, in some write-ups, as they put it, the most polluted piece of real estate in the whole world. No, people could not live their normal lives, go to their farms, and it recorded about 7,000 to 8,000 spillages of oil. And every day you have tons and tons of gas fled into the air. About 2.5 billion cubic feet of gas fled every day into the atmosphere, which kicks the ground and pollutes the river system. So this created the basis for some form of agitation. And interesting enough also, or sad enough, the resource cost was the fact that the areas where these things were being taken away never felt the impact of the wealth. And that created some agitation. But we've been able to go beyond that, and we're in a stage of constructive engagement. But however, we have to be careful because the pollutions are still there.
Okay. In your last statement, you've raised two issues.
Yes.
Let me take this one before I go to the other one. What do you make of the call by NGOs and civil society organizations and leaders of host communities protesting the divestment of multinational oil companies, that they should first of all, before they divest, address all pending issues in the Niger Delta, question of remediation and all that you have mentioned?
Well, that is a proper and legitimate point of view, because they have totally despoiled the environment. And the UNEP report of 2011 says that it will take about 30 years to remediate. Now, in the middle of not doing anything at all, they try to look for a safe escape route by saying, we are now going offshore. But unfortunately, I have to put them on notice that it's not going to be as easy, because you don't just destroy people's environment and say we have passed the liability over to those who are taking the assets from us, because the people of the Niger Delta will not fold their hands. We are going to pursue the environmental justice, which is legitimate. There was a recent report that was commissioned by the government of Bayelsa State, an international consortium of experts led by the Archbishop of York. And in that report, they stated that beyond the UNEP report on Ogoni, that the level of pollution in the Niger Delta in some cases is 1,000 times more than is accepted anywhere in the world. And the conclusion of the report is that the polluters must be brought to justice. They must pay for the repair, the remediation of the environment. So if people think that, well, we have divested and we are off, it's not going to be like that, because it is a crime against humanity.
Yeah.
And crimes against humanity are crimes that are justiciable almost in perpetuity. The communities concerned will follow them up, if not in Nigerian courts, in the courts in their own jurisdictions. Because you can't just pollute people's environment and walk away and say, oh, yes, we walked away. It's not going to be as easy, because it's a matter of survival.
A matter of survival. Inclusion seems to be, I mean, that's the next thing you talked about, coming to inclusion seems to be the new norm, where traditional rulers, host communities now engage in decision-making processes. What informed this, and how will this, affect peace and sustainable development in the region?
Let me tell you, at the height of the Niger-Delta crisis, and it must be mentioned very clearly, that sometimes people beat their chest and say there's peace in the Niger-Delta because of the effort of the military. We have one of the best military in the world, in Nigeria. But I want to mention that it was not because of military might. I worked with President Obasanjo at the time as his advisor on Niger-Delta.
Yeah.
And many times President Obasanjo and even President Yar'Adua, as pliant and quiet as it was, bombed the areas. But they could not succeed, and the community leaders had to get involved. It was the chiefs and the people of the Niger Delta that took the risk to go to these camps and talk to these boys and said it's enough, please give us the chance to talk. And I remember when President Buhari came into power in 2015, a group that called itself Niger Delta Avengers came up, and oil production moved from about 2 million barrels to 800,000 barrels. And the leaders of Niger Delta met and said, no. This is affecting the national economy. We don't want the economy to collapse. This is the mainstay of the economy. And we now formed teams that went out to reach out to our boys. So the point there is that it was the effort of Niger Delta leaders, particularly led by Chief Edwin Clark, and the traditional rulers, Obongo Calabar, the Obi of, all of them, Obongo Calabar, everybody, the Olu of Warri, King Jaja, everybody came on board. And on 2nd November 2016, we saw President Buhari, and we assured him, President Buhari at the time, we will bring peace.
Yeah.
On 18 November 2017, when Osibanjo was acting, we saw him again. I was part of the delegation. We told him we will bring down production ranked up. Even the present increase in production, as you know, yes, it's a combined effort. The military is trying their best, but it's more community-based. We are taking the lead in talking to our people that, look, let us give peace a chance. Any disruption affects the environment, and so on. So I think the Niger Delta leaders have done their part, and we also expect some correspondence from the authorities in terms of the fact that yes, it's good to increase oil production. We're not against it. We've always assured government that we will keep talking to our people to increase oil production. If Nigeria can do 3 million barrels, good for it. But then there must be a corresponding impact on the communities in terms of infrastructure.
Where this oil is
yes,
drawn
in terms of infrastructure, and also in terms of the livelihood of the people. And the environmental remediation. Let me say something about environmental remediation.
Okay.
Government is doing something in Ogoni because of UNEP report. Very good. But then the whole Niger Delta, the core states that produced oil or producing are polluted. So we think that there should be pilot projects in all of them. If we wait and say we are going to do all of them at a time, it will not work. So if we do something in every state in a pilot scale, then it can be scaled up over time. And I think that is the way to go about the remediation of the environment.
Now you're talking about projects and infrastructure.
Yes.
The president, Tinubu, accuses politicians of meddling with NDDC affairs. I mean, we'll come to talk about NDDC more,
okay.
Leading to project delays. That's what he's saying. He gave an approval to NDDC to borrow additional 1 trillion, added to about 1.9 trillion their budget. This sounds quite interesting, and it will help the NDDC.
Well, you know, the NDDC was created as a specific intervention agency to take care of the oil-producing communities, many of which did not feel the impact and are still not feeling the impact of the oil industry. It's an intervention agency. For some years, for the past 8 years, there was no substantive management. We had ad hoc management, acting MD, acting CEO. President Tinubu has done very well by constituting a board, a proper board, so there can be corporate governance and with a management. So with this, NDDC can now be able to fulfill its mandate and do major projects. The ad hoc people knew that they were just temporary. They were birds of passage and could not be able to do any major projects. But with this substantive management, they can be able to, bite the bullet and take major mega projects, impactful projects. Like the days of Humpadek, we had power plants, major power plants like Transamadi and Afam, some of the Afam plants built Humpadek, which are still surviving. Those are the kind of things NDDC should do. And talking with the present management, there's a young man, Sam Youngboku, very capable. Let me tell you one thing he has done, which is surprising. If you go to anywhere in the Niger-Delta, by this time of the night, there's light everywhere.
That's what I'm going to talk about.
Oh, you wanted to talk about
youth empowerment?
No, not even the youth. Is the light
and
up
the solar, both of them.
Light
and the
up
solar light projects, which some have described as a game changer, reducing insecurity in the community.
No, it's a game changer because when we come to Abuja, we go home, particularly in the rural community. Suddenly, there's light everywhere. Even if you don't have power, electric power in the households, there's electricity on the streets, and even students come to sit there to read. So that's something that Mboko and the chairman of his board, they've done very well, and we commend them. Then they now have the youth initiative. So I think that if president gives them permission to raise some money, and they're engaging stakeholders. Stakeholder engagement is very important for project implementation and project ownership. And that's something they're doing, and we hope they will sustain it.
Okay, let's also talk more about Obuku's activities through training and capacity building programs to get the rulers and local communities to own peace building initiatives.
Well, you see, the peace in the Niger-Delta, because of its importance to the national economy, has to be sustained by multi-stakeholders' participation. And somebody has to take responsibility. And since NDDC is the intervention agency responsible for that, training community leaders to know that there are alternative strategies for conflict resolution, there are ways of solving problems, even if it is between the communities and oil companies or among themselves. So the training is not only for people who can potentially cause trouble, but also community leaders, women groups, young men, the youth in particular, and also giving them some means of livelihood, be able to empower them to own their own business and so on. So we support those initiatives that he's doing, and what is important is sustainability. These things have to be sustained. And when you train people, you also have to follow up with them to ensure that they are able to live a life beyond the training. So I think these are good initiatives of the NDDC, and we encourage them as PANDEF. We are the mother body in the region, and we encourage them, and we've always assured him that if there are any issues, let us know.
Let's talk briefly before we get into Obuku more and what the communities are doing as well. The governors themselves, you have Bayelsa, you have Rivers,
Delta.
13% derivative, and then IGR in the states. Are they doing enough?
the Niger-Delta, let me...
Because some people have said
the
that the Niger-Delta,
yes,
in a way, are the cause of their own problems.
No. The Niger-Delta is an exceptionally difficult terrain. When they went to 1957 to the Constitutional Conference in London, and the Willis Commission was set up, it was not over oil, it was over environment, over the fact that the majority of the Niger-Delta is wetland, waterlogged. Now, if it takes you 10 million to build a house in Abuja, in the Niger-Delta, it will take you like 40 million in many parts of Niger-Delta. Like my local government, we are one of the biggest oil producers, southern Niger, and I can get on my community only by water. If you, yes, water. So, but water, that's an issue. But the point is that the terrain. So when they went to London, they say, hey, look, independence is coming, but we're people cut off from the rest of the country. So it's a difficult terrain, and the governors have to deal with this factor. And
are you cutting them some slack?
I'm not going to absolve every governor. There is still room for improvement, but I think that on the average, most of the governors have tried creditably well. They are doing quite well, many of them. There are some that have areas of concern, and we tell them, we talk to them. I may not be able to call names here, but we whisper to them and say, look, Your Excellency, you can improve in this area, can improve in this area. But I think the Niger-Delta governors are giving a good account, beyond that 13%. And we need to encourage them in that area.
All right. This sounds quite interesting, the issue I'm going to raise now. 250 communities are to benefit from the CSR, that is Social Responsibility program, as host communities of Pipeline Infrastructure Nigeria Limited. A step in the right direction?
No, benefit how?
What you call social responsibility.
CSR,
yes. Yeah, CSR. Yes. I mean, they have the same exercises, giving stuff to them and training.
No, we don't want handouts.
Yeah.
We don't want handouts. We don't want people to give us white or brown envelopes. That's what they used to be the old system. They call traditional rulers and a few people to a meeting and talk, make nice talk, and then give you some envelopes. No, but what we want, when we say CSR, there should be something impactful. If you do CSR in terms of building capacity, after the capacity, you must give people the wherewithal to be able to practice. That's what they've learned. Or if it's community projects, let the community say what kind of projects they want. A bottom-up approach. There was what a man called Bill Knight introduced that was community-based. That is, from the communities have to own what projects that this company should do.
That's what they're encouraging communities, pipeline communities, to own the pipelines running through their communities, and this ensures their safety.
Yes.
How has this helped?
Typically, let me say, you see, when a pipeline, these pipes are huge pipes. They are not this size, maybe about 1.5 the size of this table. And the amount of heat they generate is such that it will go maybe another 10 meters either side. So it's difficult. Then close by, there's gas flaring going on. So Simon Boko has now given us solar power. What gas flaring was given to us. We used to read our books from gas flaring without knowing even the impact. So the point is that the communities cannot live their normal lives. So if there are CSR programs that will help them to have some means of livelihood, alternative means of livelihood, they are quite welcome. But then what we suggest is these things must be community owned so that they don't just fade away, peter away
that's what they're doing.
After some time.
All right, some experts are calling for a comprehensive urgent reforms in Nigeria's oil and gas. They said the growing insecurity in the region, because of the growing insecurity in the region. In fact, some are saying that there should be an amendment to the PIA to address emerging challenges, especially those related to environmental issues.
No, the environmental issue is #1 problem of the Niger-Delta, to my mind, and we in PANDEF hold our view strongly, because this environment has been polluted for a period of about 60 years. seriously polluted. Look, when we were growing up as children in the Niger-Delta, if you go to take your bath in the water, you have to struggle with the fish. But today, people in communities where there are big rivers, tributaries of the River Niger, River Non, River Focados, and so on, have to wait for them to bring ice fish because the fish is gone because of the gas on top of the water that dries them away. They can't spawn. They can't stay there. So now the pollution is, so that environmental issue is number one. And we think the remediation must be dealt with all seriousness. But when you say comprehensive look at it, yes, we agree. Because there are many regimes in this country. The oil under the ground belongs to the federal government. You can't do it, you can't touch it or anything. But then other solid minerals belong to individuals. We saw when a state governor came with gold bars to give to the president and say, hey, look at the gold bar from me, I give it to you as a present. But I can't do that with oil. Or neither can any governor from Akwa Ibom, from Bayelsa or Delta do that because the regimes are different and it's like one country, two systems or several systems. So these are areas of social justice that need to be addressed and looked into comprehensively. And then we have young men in the Niger Delta who use their initiative to begin to process crude oil. Of course, the aspect which is wrong is if this is stolen crude. We reject it, we are against it, but then they've been able to develop technology by themselves to refine it, and then we now take that and pour it back on the environment, what they produce, and further pollute the environment. We think that is wrong. If you tell some countries, you will not throw away the baby and the bathwater. You take the aspect of the illegal part, you take it away, but you take these boys and say, hey, how did you do this? And then incubate the technology and be able to, if you go travel in America between Louisiana and maybe a place like some of those areas that produce, or you see cattle refineries, 300 barrels, 500 barrels. And this was what we agreed with former Vice President Osibanjo when he was acting president, that the federal government will have a fund to create mini refineries, small community-based refineries, so that they can buy this crude properly and maybe at a concessionary price or whatever, because it's from the oil companies, and they pay taxes, they produce, and take care of the local market.
All right. I don't know. I had some other issues, but I just have 1 minute left now for us to look at this one. Okay. TrumpCom, traditional rulers of oil and mineral producing communities of Niger-Delta, says one of the key challenges facing the institution is lack of recognition and empowerment by government. They are talking about constitutional role just in under a minute. How can we get around this?
That's a national issue.
Okay.
Constitutional role for traditional rulers is a national issue, not just a Niger-Delta issue. And there's a National Council of Traditional Rulers. They've been advocating for it. Well, I think it's something that's worth looking at. Because even in the First Republic, we had the House of Chiefs. In the three regions, it was only the East that did not have, West and the North had the House of Chiefs. And they have a normative value. Because if you go to a normal palace of a traditional ruler, from morning to night, they are solving cases. They are like, they call them ad hoc government. So I think if there's a constitutional amendment, there should be some rules cast out for them, clearly for them.
All right, Ambassador God knows Igali, thank you so much for your time on Arise
thank you.
Time.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Do join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, goodbye and thank you for watching.